Hello and welcome to the channel, and welcome back if you've hung out with us before. Today we are visiting Edlingham Castle, so come and join us on our adventure today. Edlingham Castle is a small castle ruin, having scheduled monument and Grade 1 listed building status in the Care of English Heritage. It is located in a valley to the west of Alnwick in Northumberland, here in bonny old England. Edlingham was once known as Edwulfingham. The Ham of Edwulf was one of 4 Northumbrian royal villages given to Cuthbert in 737 AD by King Ceolwulf, who resigned his throne to become a monk on Lindisfarne.
The village, of some 600 people, lay to the north and west of the castle, and its church was consecrated by Bishop Egrid.
So this castle is fairly easy to get to. It's about an hour's drive from where we are in Sunderland. Pretty easy roads on 2 ways, tracks most of the time. However, the last 5 minutes or so you are on single track roads. So just bear that in mind if you come in the summer months when the roads may be busier.
Parking is at the St John the Baptist Church, but it's very limited. We were lucky and went out of season, but in the summer months it might get very busy and the parking could be an issue. It is free, however.
This is St John the Baptist Church. It dates back to the 11th century and is still used by the parish to this day. There is a notice board inside which is crammed full of information, which we found very interesting and informative.
So this is inside the church, and I found it very impressive, especially standing here. I could just imagine being a priest in the 12th, 13th century giving a sermon to your flock. It would have been an amazing spectacle. Amazing. With churches like this and then educated, well-dressed men, you could see how they were easily converted to Christianity, let's say.
Looking at the landscape, you can just imagine how brutal life would have been back in the day. So places like this, especially with beautiful windows like this, would have seemed like a sanctuary to most people.
Yeah, the camera really doesn't do it justice. Inside it lights up and pops with colour. It's absolutely wonderful. Wonderful stained glass window.
So these are the information boards that I mentioned earlier in the video. There's lots of information regarding the history of the church and the castle, so it's definitely worth popping in and checking those out for more information about the castle, what it would have looked like, and a bit about the history of it. So I did have a little wander around the graveyard as well, just on the area where the church is located. It was so peaceful. You could barely hear the birds chirping, to be honest, in the graveyard itself. There's not too many headstones, so it was a bit strange walking around trying to imagine possibly where some of those graves would have been. I'm assuming some of them would have been local people who couldn't have afforded fancy headstones, or they've just been lost over time. But it was definitely a sober and peaceful walk around the grounds themselves, although it was quite boggy and there's not a specific path, so I would just be mindful of that if you do decide to take a little look around. So this is Edlingham Castle. By 1174, a John of Edlingham owned a manor house at this location. In 1294, a descendant, Walter de Edlingham, sold it to William de Felton.
Felton was a member of an important family with estates in Norfolk and Shropshire, but he made his fortune independently through royal service, military favour, and marriage to a Northumberland heiress, Constance de Pomtrop.
Edlingham Castle dates mainly from the 14th century, although a manor house of the 13th century is probably concealed beneath the latter building. The earliest standing remains are those of the Hall House, built in about 1300 by Sir William de Felton, at a time when Northumberland was relatively peaceful. Edlingham Castle guards one of the few approaches to Alnwick through the hills to its west. Its fortifications were increased in response to the border warfare which raged between England and Scotland in the periods from about 1300 to 1600. As you approach the castle itself, you will see there's a couple of information boards just like this one here. That does give a brief description of the castle and some of its history, although you can get a more in-depth sheet from the church itself just for a small donation. What I would also say, just be careful on the approach if you've been when there's been quite a bit of bad weather. As you can see, it does get very boggy, and there is a couple of areas around the castle itself where you will find this in the ground.
William de Felton strengthened his castle by building strong ramparts and a gatehouse, fortifying the main hall and adding other buildings inside the courtyard.
The castle itself would have had 2 stories, with the undercroft used for storage. At ground floor level and on the first floor would have been the public and private apartments of the lords of the manor of Edlingham. A curtain wall and gatehouse enclosed the hall and courtyard. Only the bases of these structures now remain. The ramparts that once surrounded the manor survive as an earthwork. A variety of service buildings evidently existed within the courtyard, including a kitchen, brewhouse and bakehouse. The foundations of these service buildings that are now visible date from the replanning of the courtyard, which ranges after 1514. There's not a lot of signage around to see what would be what. There's a couple but not too many, so I guess you'll just have to use your imagination. So for the most part, we were here ourselves. There was a couple of the people came but left fairly quickly. So for the most part, it was just ourselves there. I was walking around the castle on my own. And I'll be honest, there was quite an eerie feel. There was times when I felt as though there was someone standing behind me, but when I turned around, there was nobody there. I also went into what remains of the solar tower, and again, I just felt like I wanted to get out of there. We did do quite a bit of research before we came, but it was when we come away from there and we were fact checking, making sure we had all correct information, that we came across the story of Margaret Stoddard. And as it turns out, in 1683, Edlingham Castle featured in the trial of Margaret Stoddard, who was the so-called Witch of Edlingham. So that could maybe explain why I was feeling that way. There is a couple of stories as well of people saying that they've felt things when they're walking around, clothes being tugged, hearing footsteps from above when there's obviously nothing above them, as well as locals saying that they often see strange lights around the castle at night as well. So that could maybe explain what I was feeling, but who knows? Judge for yourself. So this is the solar tower and the best preserved part of the castle. This provided accommodation for the owners and his family. The north and west walls of the tower survived almost to full height, and the forebuilding was situated on the north side, and on the corners there were stepped buttresses, each originally surmounted by a circular turret with battlements. The tower is 3 stories high and each floor contains a single chamber. The first floor room has a double line of windows and the remains of an elaborate fireplace. In 1396, Elizabeth de Felton inherited the castle, marrying Sir Edmund Hastings, who added the strong solar tower that we've just seen. Their descendants occupied the castle and estates until 1514, when it was purchased by George Swinburne, a constable of Prudhoe, whose family held it until the 18th century.
During this time, it gradually fell into disrepair, with most of the buildings being dismantled in the 1660s to build nearby farmhouses, but it left the solar tower intact.
So that was the beautiful Edlingham Castle. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, it is now in the care of English Heritage and is easily accessible from the nearby Church of St John the Baptist in Edlingham. It is free entry, so it is completely free day out. If you've got little kids that love to go and explore, definitely check it out. But thanks for coming on our journey with us today.
So thank you very much for watching, and as usual we're going to give an accessibility score at the end of our video. Now for the church we've decided to go for
a 4 out of 10. The reason being is, I'll be honest, it's not very accessible if you use like a wheelchair or a mobility scooter. If you're on something like crutches and you're quite agile on them, potentially, but I still wouldn't say it was necessarily accessible, so definitely a 4 out of 10.
Now the church gets a 3. The walk down was quite far. I don't think you get down there on a mobility scooter. I think it would be too much hassle. Very boggy ground, as you saw. The castle ground itself, it was very uneven. There was a lot of cobblestones that were uneven. It was very, you could roll your ankles easy, you could trip easy. I personally found it very hard. I didn't really go across it too much. So yeah, I'll go 3 out of 10. Now you could walk around the outside the castle, but again it was boggy. So yeah, the castle gets a 3 and the church gets a 4.
But bear in mind that these places were built a long time ago, 11th century, when disabilities weren't really taken into consideration, but they are definitely beautiful places to visit if you get a chance.
Definitely worth a visit. Thank you very much for watching. See you again on the next one.
Take care. Bye.